Hello and congratulations! You've just taken home your Rodrigues Farm Hatchling rental kit. I'm going to walk you through how the coop works, all of the equipment that you were given, as well as the food, water, and care of your chicks. So, your coop looks something like this. Essentially, this contains everything that you need, as well as the food and bedding that you should have received 1 bucket of each, that you're going to need to look after your chicks. So let's open it up. Inside, what you'll find are 2 bowls. They have magnets installed to attach them to the bottom of the coop. So the food bowl and then the water bowl is the one with the small plate attached to that as well. The reason these are magneted to the bottom of the coop is just to keep the chicks from spilling them, especially the water bowl. They can get a little bit messy sometimes. Along with that, you have your heat lamp, which is coming through this plug here. So effectively, I'll walk you through the heat lamp in a little bit. Then you have your bucket of pine shaving bedding. Looks like that. It's going to blow all over. And your chick starter as well. So that's the food that they need to eat. In terms of looking after your chicks, they're going to look pretty small in there. Not much bigger than one of these eggs. That's because they hatched out of one of these eggs not only 1 or 2 days ago. So they look pretty small inside this coop, but don't worry, they're going to grow. The way that we've designed the coop is so that you can take it apart easily for cleaning. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We recommend that once a week you replace the pine shavings in the bottom of the crate. This is just to keep the smell down, make sure the chicks are healthy and it's nice and clean for them. We've designed this coop specifically for that purpose. So what you can do is unlatch the sides. There's 2 on the front and 2 on the back here. And you can actually lift this right off. Yours has a handle, mine does not. Then remove your food and water bowls. For the food bowl, we recommend not putting it in the dishwasher, only because it has this magnet attached to the bottom. This is a pretty powerful magnet, and if you run it through your dishwasher, you could theoretically demagnetize the electronics, or you could also get a fork stuck to that, and then it might, gum up the works. So just recommend hand wash with a little bit of dish soap and hot water. You can put the water dish in the dishwasher if you like, because the magnet is actually installed in the coop itself. That said though, your dishwasher, I don't know about yours, mine takes about an hour to run, and we wouldn't want your chicks to be without water that long. So same idea, just give it a quick hand wash. We recommend at least weekly, but with the water bowl in particular, it could get dirtier a little bit more often than that. So just wash it whenever it looks kind of gunky. In terms of the pine shavings that you have in here, so you can see I've got them in here, we do recommend lining the bottom with newspaper if you can. Not only does that make it a little bit easier and less messy for you, you can put that straight in your compost bin and then line with newspaper again. All of the pine shavings are compostable. That means you can put them in your own compost bin or bags, or you can just throw them out into the garden with the chick, at this point we'll call it fertilizer, mixed in. It's really great for your garden. So go ahead and do that. Now, this bucket of bedding that we've given you should be enough to do 1 good clean every week. So once a week. So about 7 or 8 cleanings. So try and use about 1/8 of the bucket each time. That's probably about 4 big handfuls. What that essentially does, you'll find it's quite compact, so give it a good fluff out. Just give it a nice thin layer of bedding over top of this. What you don't want to do is get it so deep that the chicks, when they scratch it around, it's actually going to come over the lip of the coop here and make a huge mess. They're going to push it around, peck around in it. They're going to find food in it. That's very natural for chicks to do. The litter basically just keeps a lot of their poop from staining or rotting the bottom of the coop itself. So just keep that in mind when you're filling it up. Once you've if you want to give it a wipe down, you can do that too. The whole crate is solid wood with a light lacquer layer on it. So we just recommend a little hot water and a damp washcloth will take all of that off there. Once you've changed your litter and it's clean and good to go, then you can just remagnet your food and water bowls in here. Oh, with the tray. Easy peasy. You can refill your food bowl before you put it back in there. And then, of course, refill your water bowl, and then they're good to go. What you may be asking is, well, Sarah, what on earth do I do with the chicks while the coop is open like this? Can't have them running around free necessarily. So what you want to do, actually, the way that we've designed the coop is that you could lift that right off onto some newspaper that you have handy. Just let him have his say as well. If you lift this off onto some newspaper, you can keep the chicks right in there, let them roam around. If you're only going to be a few minutes, don't worry about food and water. If you're going to be longer, or if you're sort of playing with them outside, then definitely you want to make sure that they have some food and water in there. You can also put this crate lid directly on the grass. So it's a really great option for people who don't have, say, a contained backyard, or who maybe, want to have the chicks out for some play, but are a little bit worried about them getting away, or maybe they have a domestic pet. You can put this crate lid directly on the grass, and then the chicks can play in there, scratch around, eat some bugs, eat some grass seed, all of that fun stuff, without worrying about them flying away or getting loose. When you're done with the cleaning, you can just put this right back on top. This prototype version, you'll see it has dowels that line up. Your version will not. We deemed them unnecessary and overly complicated. So in case you were wondering why I was struggling a bit there. Then you just want to make sure you've latched it back up, and you're good to go. And that's basically all the care that they need. On a daily basis, you want to make sure you check their food and water. I would say, especially as they grow, to check at least twice a day. They'll go through water and food a lot faster the bigger that they get. In terms of the heat lamp, so there are some instructions in your manual about ideal temperatures for chicks, but what's really great about the chicks is they kind of let you know what they need. If you find that your chicks are huddled directly under the heat lamp all the time, that means they're a little too cold. If they're over here, they're active, they're nowhere near the heat lamp, they're probably fine in terms of temperature. If you do find them sort of panting, drinking a lot of extra water, it could just be too warm for them in the room in general. Especially as they get older, they won't need the heat lamp as much if you're keeping them indoors at a sort of reasonable room temperature around 21 degrees. What you may find is that if you keep your house warm enough in the daytime, or they're receiving direct sunlight, as they get older, you may not need the heat lamp at all. But if your thermostat is set to go down at night, and it is going to get colder in there, you may want to turn it back on at night. So just to explain the heat lamp a little bit, obviously power cord, standard power cord. It does have an on-off switch. So as I mentioned, if you're kind of getting into into the older chicks who need or don't need the heat lamp, you can just flip it on and off here. And we've designed this specifically so that you can raise and lower the heat lamp as needed using this plug specific to this hole. So when your chicks are young, if you find that they need a little bit warmer, maybe they're huddled under there quite a bit, you just lower the heat lamp, but you still want to make sure that they're not going to touch it. So keep it at least a good inch above wherever the chicks are in terms of height. So if we go back to my little egg example, this chick in this heat lamp is not going to be anywhere near touching it, which is great. As they grow older, you can pull that up and raise the heat lamp accordingly. That's as high as it goes, but before they're sort of at the age where it's going to be a problem, they're not going to be needing the heat lamp anymore. So that's great. You can actually remove it when you're ready, because all of this will pull directly through the hole, like so, and then just plug it back up when you're done. Just be careful. Put this in a safe place, because we will be expecting this to be returned in good condition with the rest of your equipment as part of your deposit. Just to explain how this works. So in terms of where the heat comes from, this is a heat bulb, not a heat lamp per se. It doesn't give off any light. It only radiates heat. It's actually much more efficient, and it's sort of better for the chicks in the long run because they get more used to sort of daytime and nighttime lighting. The heat is designed to radiate from this surface it does get very hot. So if this were plugged in and on, this would be a very, very, very bad idea. So when it's on, it's safe to touch the cord, always. This part will not be very hot. This part could start to be getting warm. Any part of the actual bulb itself, you won't want to touch. So in terms of adjusting height, if all you're doing is pulling up through the unit, that's totally fine to do, even when it's on. I believe the manufacturer would suggest you turn it off, but if all you're doing is pulling through like this, totally fine. If you're getting into lowering it or pulling it out of the unit like I just said, or if you were maybe trying to do a more thorough clean and you wanted to remove it for a brief period of time, we would recommend you turn it off and give it sufficient time to cool before touching it. And I would suggest that only adults do anything involved with a heat lamp, and we keep the little fingers away from that. So that's the heat bulb. I'll call it heat lamp interchangeably, but it is officially not a heat lamp because it gives off no light. With that in mind, knowing that the lamp doesn't give off any light, we want to make sure that our chicks are getting sort of a daytime, nighttime schedule. If you have your coop in a room with a window, that works. It's perfect. If you have your coop in, let's say, a garage or a room that maybe doesn't get any sunlight, what you're going to want to do is turn the lights on during the daytime and turn them off at night, just to make sure everybody's getting sort of a regular schedule. Chicks need light just as much as they need food, water, and heat to survive. So that is the basics. In terms of maintenance and care, if you do find, as you go through the chick program, if your chicks look ill, if one unfortunately does happen to die, if you are running low on food or bedding, if your heat lamp doesn't work, any of those things, refer to your manual, but at the very least, give us a quick call or an email. Our information is listed in all of the documentation that you've been given. Some minor things, if let's say your heat lamp fails and your chicks still require it, what you're going to want to do is obviously contact us immediately. But let's say that happens in the middle of the night, or you can't get a hold of us right away, or your chicks are quite young and they really need the temperature. There's a couple things you can do in terms of troubleshooting. So if you have a small space heater, go ahead and put that on in the room where the chicks are staying and try and bring that room temperature up to where it should be. So sort of week-old chicks around 27 degrees if possible. Don't directly shoot the hot air on them because, again, they won't be able then to sort of regulate their own temperature by moving around because heat will be coming from everywhere. You can also, especially if it's maybe not 27, 28 degrees that you're trying to get to, but maybe just keeping it around 23, 24, then you can start looking at maybe putting a heating pad or a heating blanket directly under the coop for them. You can also put a hot water bottle inside and they can choose whether to snuggle it or get away from it. It's at their preference. So those are just a couple sort of stopgap options, but we would say always contact us in case of emergency. For bedding, the only thing I will say, reiterate, that's in the manual is that there's acceptable types of bedding and unacceptable types of bedding. So what we have sent you is coarse pine shavings, specifically for animals and particularly baby chicks. Fine pine shavings are too fine. They can breathe it in and then they can get respiratory problems. They might eat it and then get sick. So steer clear of fine pine shavings, but coarse pine shavings, totally fine. Newspaper is also great, especially when they're really young. And if you're finding that the pine shavings, like they're scratching it around so much it's making a mess for you or whatever, then newsprint is an excellent alternative. We've designed the coop to have this sort of large lip so that they can't kick out quite so much, but that's entirely your preference. Newspaper is totally fine. Other kinds of paper are also okay, as well as burlap and some straw, but I mean, frankly, you're probably more likely to have access to newspaper than straw. So if you do have any questions or concerns, let's say, if you had a hamster and you want to use up that bedding, then yeah, sure. Like we can just give us a call or an email or send me a quick text and we can confirm that for you just to make sure that it's safe for the chicks. Water, tap water is totally acceptable. Filtered is not required. They don't have a preference regarding temperature, but the way we've designed the coop is that the water will not be directly under the heat lamp. That's by design because we don't want the water getting so hot that if they're hot, they can't control their temperature by drinking some water. And the food, we ask that you only give them the food provided. The only exception is if you do take your chicks out and give them some playtime outside, again, that should be supervised in the coop if possible. Then what they might do is they might eat grass seed, insects, dandelions, basically anything they kind of find on your lawn is going to be fine, as long as you don't spray significantly for pesticides. So those are sort of the only caveats to your care kit. And hopefully you are able to find everything else that you need in the manual. But again, if at any point you do have questions, then you can go ahead and give us a call or an email or a text. Regarding your return date, just to reiterate, at 6 weeks after your pickup date, you're eligible to return your chicks. We like to give it at least 6 weeks just because at that point, that's when they can start to live outside in our secure coop. So after 6 weeks, you're welcome to return them at any point. Just give us a quick call or email before you do come by, just so we know that you're coming and we can make sure you're scheduled for COVID safety protocols. 6 weeks is, I would say, the absolute earliest that a rooster would crow. It's very rare. I would say 10 to 12 weeks is actually more likely. But at that point, if you did notice that you had maybe 2 roosters and they started to crow and they were driving you insane, then by all means, send them on back to the farm. 8 weeks is your last return date. So like I said, anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks is fine, but 8 weeks is your last return date. If for whatever reason, let's say, you're going to be unable to deliver that exact day, but you can come the next day or the day after that, just communicate that with us. We're very flexible in terms of that, but we do need the kits back, particularly to rent for the next set. So we've given a few days leeway there, but if you are not communicative about your return date and you do miss the 8-week cutoff, that's when we start looking into not refunding your deposit. Because quite often what it will mean is we have to replace your entire kit just in case. And we also have to then worry about the safety of the 2 birds that you still have with you. So please just communicate all those kinds of things with us. We're a small business, but we're pretty reasonable people. So just as long as you keep in touch with us, shouldn't have any problems. And then, yeah, if there are cases where people were interested in purchasing any of the equipment or their chickens, please let us know. We don't recommend it for a number of reasons, which I'm happy to discuss with you. But we are considering renting out laying hens next year, along with the chick rentals. So if that's something you might be interested in, we'd actually like some more feedback on that. And then when you're all done and your chicks are back here at the farm, you can continue. If you're already following us on Instagram or Facebook, we post a lot of animal pictures. I would say probably more goats than chickens, but we'll definitely be posting lots of chicken pictures. And if you take any pictures of you and your family enjoying the chick rental kit while you're doing it, then by all means, please tag us. It's at Rodrigues Homestead on Facebook and at Rodrigues Farm on Instagram. What we would also love for you to do is if you could drop us a review, we would really appreciate it. So we have a Google page. You can just Google Rodrigues Farm and we show up there where you can leave reviews. You can also leave reviews on our Facebook page or on our website, store.rodrigues.farm. You can actually review products that you've purchased as long as you're logged in. So any reviews and feedback would be very helpful and appreciated. And we really hope that you enjoy your rental chicks. Thank you so much.